Hi guys, welcome back. We are enjoying the book The Barren Grounds by David A. Robertson. We are now presently on page 54, chapter 7. So at the end of chapter 6, we saw where Morgan had a bit of a outburst when Katie and James had thrown a little celebration for her where they had some indigenous food and gave her a cake and gave her a gift of some moccasins from the company Manitoba Mucklucks, which is interesting because today I actually wore a pair of my Manitoba Mucklucks to school today. Or moccasins, those are. So yeah, shout out to Manitoba Company, Indigenous owned Manitoba Company. So well done. But we do see Morgan in that eruption. We learn a lot about Morgan. We learn how she feels that she doesn't have a home. She feels that she isn't worthy of love and celebration. We see that she feels that she doesn't believe that anybody loves her. She feels that her mom gave her away. We don't know the story about why Morgan is in foster care. We don't know that story. But we know now how Morgan feels about it. She feels that she's unlovable, that she was so unlovable that her mom gave her away. Okay? And so Morgan's had an outburst and she's taken off from the dining room or the living room area where they were. She hasn't left the house, but she has stormed upstairs towards her bedroom or maybe that attic area. I don't know. So we've learned a lot about Morgan. You know, she had to ask. She realizes that Eli knows more about Indigenous culture than she does because he had the privilege of being able to live that life and live with his culture at least until he was 12 years old, and now he no longer is. So she asked him for some guidance and wisdom. She asked him about tobacco. What does he know? And it seems like he does know a lot. So hopefully Eli can help Morgan get in touch with her culture and her background. All right. Chapter 7. Morgan sprinted up 2 flights of stairs to the 2nd floor, slammed the door behind her, and stopped in the middle of the hallway. She was out of breath, but not from the stairs. Her chest was heaving, and she couldn't catch her breath because she was crying so hard. Each time she wiped her cheeks, they were soaked again, instantly. If her head were against her pillow right now, and the scene of the blizzard had burst back into her mind, she wouldn't be trudging through the snow. She'd be running through it. Her heart was racing. She'd run up the stairs with the intention of going to her bedroom, packing her clothes, and leaving. They were just going to kick her out now anyway. She knew it. She'd been removed from houses before. She'd run away from houses before. One way or another, with every house, eventually she would be gone. And it would be the same here. So we see that. We see that Morgan believes that no matter where she goes, it's not going to be a home. It's a house. Okay? She's run away from them before. She's been kicked out of them before. And then it'll happen again. Right? Nobody wants her. Nobody wants to keep her. Nobody wants to put up with her. This is how she feels. She bent over, put her hands on her knees, and stared at the carpet. "You jerk," she forced out between sobs. "You stupid jerk. Those stupid jerks." Okay, so Morgan's upset at herself. She's upset at Katie and James. Okay, she's frustrated, okay? She looked up. She could hardly see her room through the tears. The open door and what lay inside was just a blurry, dark vortex. Like if she went in, she'd be swallowed whole and never come out again. She shook her head at the thought. She looked down again, and the tears she'd shaken loose fell to the carpet, making tiny, dark blotches in the fabric. She felt like they might swallow her whole too. She felt like everything might, that everything was darkness. And maybe it was better that way, just to get sucked up into it and vanish. No, she said, panting. She didn't want that. She didn't want to leave somewhere else. She'd left too many places. She was tired. She couldn't catch her breath from crying. She couldn't ever catch her breath just from life in the foster care system. And Katie and James, they were all right. They were good. She'd not had foster parents like them before. Yes, they fed her bannock. And yes, they'd given her moccasins. But Katie had said they were trying, and weren't they? Was it so bad? Who'd tried to connect with her like that before? Even if she didn't want the moccasins, was that their fault? Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe, Katie and James were trying, and maybe they shouldn't have made the assumption that Morgan wanted the moccasins, that Morgan was going to embrace her culture. They want her to know her culture. Maybe to Morgan it's scary to learn her culture. It's scary to admit how much you don't know and how much has been taken away from you in your life, how much you've missed. She wanted to pull her head off. It was spinning so hard from the confusion. What just happened? She whispered to herself. Then, out of nowhere, Eli's face was in her mind. How he was yesterday, how he was today. He'd changed so much just in that time. He was talking. She was talking. He'd asked why she was so angry, and she knew that she was. It was like he knew her as well as she thought she knew him. Was she just going to leave him now? What would happen to him? What would happen to her? She tried to even out her breathing. Tears kept dripping onto the carpet. On the first floor, dead silence. She pictured them all, sitting there in stunned silence. She replayed what had just happened, slamming the table, shouting, telling Katie that she wasn't a mother. Morgan buried her fingers in her hair and pulled. She wanted to scream, but didn't. Instead, she turned away from the carpet, turned away from her room, and started running. She kept running as far as she could run without running away. It's pretty important. Another 2 flights of stairs, and she was in the attic. She looked frantically around the large room with its broken walls and piles of debris. There had to be somewhere to go, somewhere to hide, just for a little while, so that she could gather herself, so that when they came to get her, to give her away, they couldn't find her. She scanned the room from left to right, from the place where she read most nights when Katie and James were asleep, all the way across to the painted over door. That was it. Nobody had been in there for ever. Forever was probable. And because of that, if she was able to open it, get to the other side, it would be her real secret place. And Eli could come in. Of course, he could come in. But she had to open the door first. Morgan gripped the doorknob, turned it, and pulled. The door refused to budge. She put both hands on the knob, braced her feet against the baseboard, and tried again. There might have been some give. She might have imagined it, but either way, the door looked just the way it had before. The paint, layered over the door and the frame, remained intact. In an effort that she knew would be fruitless, born of frustration, she lunged into the door with her shoulder, twice, but she only hurt herself. "Come on!" She stared at the door from top to bottom, waiting for a thought to come to her. Then her eyes drifted to some screws and nails and shards of wood littered over the plywood floor, remnants of the ongoing, endless renovation. Tools. She ran to the other side of the room, found the tool bag, and fished through it until she found what she was looking for: a box cutter. All she needed to do was cut around the door and break the paint seal. Once that was done, she'd be able to open it, no problem. If she was able to do so, it wasn't noticeable, great. But James never came up here anyway, so it might not matter. Morgan started at the bottom left corner and worked her way up. The paint was hard and thick, and it felt like she was sawing through wood. Still, as the minutes passed, she made progress. Up the side, across the top, and down the opposite side. In less than 10 minutes, she pushed the blade through the last bit of paint and stood up to regard her work triumphantly. Semi-triumphantly. Anybody would totally see that the paint had been cut away. All right, so Morgan's up in the attic, and she is trying to open up the door that was in the side of the wall that had been painted over. And it's been painted over for years. It looks like nobody has opened that door or gone through that door in a long, long time. At least not since Katie and James have been living there. And so she's going to open that door, and she wants to go in there to have a space of her own. But she also says that Eli's invited. He could come. All right, that is chapter 7, part 1. Next video will be part 2. All right, guys, take care.